بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Today it is Monday, the 12th of July 2021, and this is our series, Reflections on the Holy Quran. And this is broadcast number 233 in that series. We are discussing the meaning of chapter 2, verse 89, and this is the second broadcast in looking at the meaning of that verse. Just to remind you that Lahore Ahmadiyya community was created by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who taught us that although other people want to bring down a prophet after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, that the Holy Quran said that the Holy Prophet Muhammad is Khatamun Nabiyyin, seal of the prophets, and the Holy Prophet Muhammad said, it means La Nabi Abadi. There is no prophet after me. So now no prophet can come, whether it is an old prophet or a new one. This worried the companions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, who said, O Prophet of Allah, the Israelites would go astray after a prophet had passed away. A prophet that appeared among them had passed away. So what will happen to Muslims if no prophet is now going to come after? And the Holy Prophet then said that now Mujaddids will come. Reformers will come to reform the Ummah. Not the religion, but the Ummah. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad claimed that he was one such Mujaddid in a chain. His only distinction was that he said that the Holy Prophet had prophesied the coming of two great personalities, Masih and Mahdi. But he said it was in fact one person who bore two titles because and he said those prophecies were fulfilled in his coming. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad also said that Muslims are very fond of quickly declaring each other's heretics and kafirs and so on. That he pointed out that the Holy Prophet Muhammad had said that if one reciter of the Kalima says to another reciter of the Kalima that you are not a Muslim, then this edict of being a heretic falls upon the person who says it in the first place. So there are differences between us, but they don't make us heretics and so on. And we should listen to the other point of view with tolerance and politeness and answer them politely. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad also taught us that there are people who say that not all of the prophetic revelation that the Holy Prophet Muhammad received is in the Holy Quran. And two examples of this are Ayah Rajam and Surah Balak, but Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said nothing is missing from the Holy Quran. All prophetic revelation is in it. He also said that people say that some verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated. Hazrat Shah Waliullah says that more than 500 verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated. So he conducted research, and he came to the conclusion that not 500 but 7 verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated. But Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Naseem Maudullah Salam and Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh, they showed that no verse of the Holy Quran was, is, or ever shall be abrogated. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad stressed that jihad is a duty of every Muslim. You cannot get away from that. Jihad is a duty of every Muslim. You have to conduct jihad. But jihad as defined by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, not as defined by some other person. And the Holy Prophet, when returning from fighting, said from the minor jihad, we are returning to the major jihad now, which is to struggle against our own selves, our own inner selves, our own desires, negative desires, greed, envy, hatred, enmity. There's a long list. So it's a Muslim's duty to carry that jihad on every second of the day, every moment of the day. So let us go to chapter 2, verse 89, which we are going to have a look at again today. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولما جاءهم كتاب من عند الله مصدق لما معهم وكانوا من قبل يستفتحون على الذين كفروا فلما جاءهم ما عرفوا كفروا به فلعنة الله على الكافرين. And when there came to them a book from Allah, verifying that which they had, and aforementioned, they used to pray for victory against those who disbelieve. But when there came to them that which they recognized, they disbelieved in it. So Allah's curse is on the disbelievers. So let's start with Allah, although it was in the last verse as well, and so on, because of its importance. Generally, people think that Allah is a composite word made of al and illah. Illah means God, al means the, so it is the God. And they say, well, Arabs had many gods, and we know lots of them were in the Kaaba and so on, Lat and Manat and whatever else. And the Quraysh believed that there was a chief god. A bit like if you send out a cricket team or a football team, then you have all the players, and then you have a captain. So that was the god. Which is very objectionable, because it then opens Islam to all kinds of criticism. Now, the point is that we have to look at the Arabic language. And what we are told is Illah, God, and we've added al to it, so it became Allah. Arabic language is divided into sun letters and moon letters. Now, this division is based on how you pronounce a word when you add al before it. Sun letters are called ash-shams, haruful shamsi. Why? Because shams, and if you add an al before it, it becomes ash-shams. Lam is dropped. Qamar, because if you add al before it and you pronounce the two together, you say al-qamar. Lam is pronounced. Whereas with some letters, in pronouncing, lam is dropped. And lam is a sun letter. So you would drop the lam. But we say Allah. You pronounce the two. So that means that it is not a combination of al or illah, but it is a word in itself. It's the proper noun, which is the name of God, Allah. But invariably in dictionaries, Muslim or non-Muslim, you find this thing mentioned, that this is a combination of al and illah. And this is not correct. And although we've already mentioned this a few times, I've repeated it because I think it's important that we all have this ingrained in our heads. Okay. So to put it another way, if it was illah and al was added to it, you would still say, what would you say? Drop the la. You have two hamzas now, so you'll only pronounce one of them, and it'll just be illah. It wouldn't be Allah. Anyway, enough on that, because I'm sure this word is going to appear. Well, I know this word is going to come up again, even in the same verse. It's going to come up later on. The next word, musaddikun. And its root is qad, dal, and ha. And it occurs in the Holy Quran 155 times, with 19 different meanings in 19 different forms. For example, let's have a look. 59 times as Sadiq, 19 times as Musaddiq, and what else do we have? 15 times as Sadaqah, and 14 times as Sidq, and 10 times as Sadaqah, and 8 times as Sadaqat, and then 5 times as Sadaqat, and so on. And then other words like Siddiq and Sadiq and so on, you know, once or twice or whatever. So, what does it mean? Well, it is actually the in Urdu and so on. It simply translated into truthfulness and so on. And yes, that is one meaning. It's the opposite of as-sidqu is opposite of al-kizbu. As-sidqu is the opposite. Now, kazab means a falsehood, a lie. But there is an interesting debate about, if you say something and it is untrue, but you say it believing it to be right, is it truth or is it falsehood? And so people have said three things are required. One is that what you say with your tongue, that is also in your heart, and it's also true. So the statement that's being made is conveying information. That information should be correct. For example, وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ قِيلًا, chapter 4, verse 122. Who's more truthful than Allah? إِنَّهُ كَانَ صَادِقَ الْوَعْدِ, chapter 19, verse 54. And they were true to their word. And as I was saying, we have a sidq, and that means that what's coming from your tongue is actually in your heart. For example, if a non-believer says, Muhammadur Rasulullah, well, the statement itself is true, obviously. His tongue is saying what is true, but his heart doesn't believe in that. So although what he's saying is true, some people argue that no, he's not speaking the truth because his heart is not in it. He is actually saying an untruth. He is a liar. Although what he says is a statement of truth, but he's not saying it sincerely. And then we have a Siddiq, and that is someone who always tells the truth. He is incapable of lying. For example, this is used for Hazrat Ibrahim. Wazkur fil kitabi Ibrahima innahu kana siddiqan nabiyyan, chapter 19, verse 41. And in the book, remember Abraham. There's no doubt that he was a true prophet. And there's some debate about whether that means that Hazrat Ibrahim always spoke the truth, or does it mean that he was a real prophet. But of course, he was a real prophet. He would always speak the truth. Again, chapter 5, verse 75, about Mary, Hazrat Maryam, wa ummuhu siddiqatun, that his mother was a siddiqa. But you also have people who are not prophets, but because of their qualities, they become close to them. وَمِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ. Chapter 4, verse 29. And here we have Anbiya, prophets, Siddiq, and Shuhada, martyrs. And its interpretation is that you have prophets, but the other two categories, they are not equal in status to the prophets. Their status is lower. But because of their qualities, they are included. They are with them. An interesting application is to fighting. If a person goes to fight, to battle, and he does well, he does his duty, then you say Sadaqa fil qital. He was true in fighting. Otherwise, it will be said Kazaba fil qital. That is, that in fighting, he was not true. He was a liar. Now, there is a further aspect, and that is that you say something, and then by your action, and this is what those two statements refer to, and by your actions, you prove them to be true. Rijalun sadaku ma ahadullah alayh, chapter 33, verse 23. People who showed that they were true to the promise they made to Allah. In chapter 33, verse 17, لِيَسْأَلَ الصَّادِقِينَ عَنْ صِدْقِهِمْ. Those who speak the truth of their tongue, that in practice, what do they do? I mean, it's easy to say. Take an example. Bear true evidence. But what about the practice of it? If you had to give evidence against your near and dear ones, would you do it? And that is the point about being Siddiq. It's not just saying it with the tongue. It's not just believing it in the heart, although that's where it starts. If you're going to be Siddiq, first you believe it in the heart. Then you say it with your tongue, but then you put it into action. In chapter 48, verse 27, it says, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ الرُّؤْيَا بِالْحَقِّ. So the Prophet had a dream, and by his actions he made it come true. And in chapter 39, verse 33, وَالَّذِي جَاءَ بِالصِّدْقِ وَالصَّدَقَ بِهِ. the person who brings the truth to the people, and then by his actions, he proves that it is the truth. He just doesn't just tell you about it. And this is an interesting prayer. It's a verse of the Holy Quran, chapter 26, chapter 26, verse 84. وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. That when those who come after me speak of me, they say good things about me. They speak well of me. Well, obviously, when someone dies, what do? We don't say he was a horrible person, he was a nasty person, and so on. If you read obituaries in the Times, for example, you always find the bad points of a person have been brushed under the carpet, and only good things are being said about them. What that verse is saying is that make me such, make my character such, that once I've died and people talk about me and they say good things about me, those good things are true. And this is worth remembering. You want to behave in a way so that people, to say that you're a nice person, people don't end up lying. And then, of course, we have in the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 101, وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ. And when God sent the messenger, he then certified their heavenly revelation. وَقَفَّيْنَا عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ بِعِيسَى ابْنِ مَرْيَمَ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. Chapter 5, verse 46. And then after those prophets, on their footsteps we sent Jesus, son of Mary. And he certified, testified to the truth of the books that had gone before. At-tasdeeq is about things which are believed to be correct after research, after investigation. Which it's a bit difficult to explain. This word applies to everything in which you find research or mention or whatever about something else. As the Holy Quran says in chapter 2, verse 89, وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ كِتَابٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ. And when God sent a book which testifies to the truth of the books they have. وَنَزَلَ عَلَيْكَ بِالْحَقِّ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. Chapter 3, verse 3. He revealed to you the truth, the book with the truth, which certifies, testifies to the truth of previous books. So in this book is the research that shows you that previous books are true. And of course, we have a sadaqah, which means everything that you give um, to seek nearness to God. Remember, the Quran says, true sadaqah is to give away those things that you love. And so that includes zakat as well. But sadaqah also means extra, giving extra in addition to zakat. And interestingly, chapter 2, verse 280 was enacted into law by the British government, that if your debtor is in difficulties, then give him time. The Quran suggests, it's better if you actually write off the loan, but it says give him time. And that was enacted as law, that if you, borrow money to buy a house and you run behind with your installments, then the bank is not allowed to just throw you out. The law requires the bank to actually try and negotiate and find some ways of helping you so that you don't actually lose the house. And we saw this happening during the pandemic. All over the world, non-Muslim governments were enacting that verse of the Holy Quran into law to save their economies. Of course, this word also applies to when one person kills another, and as compensation, they can give something to the aggrieved party. And interestingly, this word also applies to the meher. Chapter 4, verse 4. Give them their meher. Sodoqatihinna nikhla. Gladly, do it gladly. Don't resent that you're settling a part of your property on your wife. Let me make this point, which is missed. And that is that in Islam, wife needs to be financially independent of the husband. This is what the intention of the Holy Quran is. This is what the intention of settling meher, which is a part of the husband's property on her. Whatever the husband has, he is required to give a part of that to the wife as meher. So that's the wife's. Why? To make women financially independent, so that they don't rely on their husbands all the time. I find it very strange that men don't think it's embarrassing at all, that, they're at some function and the wife wants to, buy something or give someone a tip or something, and she has to ask her husband, "Honey, let me have £5. I want to tip the waiter." Don't men find it embarrassing and insulting that, their wife is so beholding to them that she has to beg them for money in public to do anything? Islam is trying to make women financially independent by saying this. But what do? We use all kinds of tricks. Just like we use all kinds of tricks to get out of having to pay zakat or anything else. We try all manner of tricks so that we don't have to pay our wives their meher. This is their right, and it is our duty to pay them this. This is a gift. This is not charity. You see the width of meaning in Arabic. This is not charity. This is a gift. Why? Because the word Siddiq, which includes in it sincerity, friendship, companionship, loyalty, all of them are included in this as well. So someone who gives their life to you, their sincerity, their loyalty, their companionship, and so on, if they want to buy a pair of shoes, you want them to come running to you as some kind of a beggar. Why do you think Islam said, settle a part of your property, that you agree with them on your wives? Give me another explanation. Send me a comment and explain that if the reason is not what I'm saying. And men who don't do this, men who behave like mini dictators, should be ashamed of themselves. Their behavior is utterly un-Islamic. Read the Holy Prophet Muhammad's last sermon, what he said about treatment of wives. With that, I understand we've slightly overrun our time, so I will take my leave of you with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep everyone safe and sound and free from harm. Until we meet again tomorrow, Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.